Previously on In the Maw of Thanatos.
Would I recommend this film? Most definitely. It was alright. Not so much. I want to say yes, but I can't. Sure, I guess. I would totally recommend this. So good that it's now on my annual Christmas watch list. Maybe? Probably not. Definitely give this one a miss. I would, but it may not be for everyone. Abso-friggin-lutely. No. No, I wouldn't. Most definitely. Of course I would. Hello spooky people, and welcome to In the Maw of Thanatos, where I talk about all types of horror, both old and new, because, and sing it with me, that's what I do. It's August, and that can only mean one thing. It's my birthday! And it's also the channel's birthday too. And that means that I cover a movie from the year of my birth. Flesh-hungry aliens descend upon a small town in today's review, so expect plenty of puppets, basements, and teeth in The Deadly Spawn. We jump straight into the action with a meteor crashing into Earth. The event is witnessed by two camping bros who see that it lands far away, but also right next to their camp.
Let's go look.
They go to investigate, and whilst one gets a little bit too close, the other returns to camp to get a camera.
I gotta get a picture of this. Hey, don't forget the flash attachment.
An unseen creature attacks first one and then the other, and we see that eating appears to make the creature grow, as we see its shadow sprout legs and begin to get larger. And then, title card! Inside a house with some fabulous decor live our main characters and victims. This is our main location. The most irritating alarm clock in the world goes off, waking up the mother and father of our heroes. It's a bit confusing at first, because there are like 4 adults living in the house, and it isn't until we meet the second couple, at about 15 minutes in, that we actually learn who everyone is. Anyway, Sam, the dad, discovers that there's no hot water. He tells his wife Barb, who is dressed in an incredibly fetching nightie, that he's off down into the basement. First though, he goes to grab the newspaper from off the stoop, and we can see that the window to the basement is open. I sure hope nothing snuck in. Oh, never mind. Shortly after, Barb follows him down into the basement, and while suffering from an extreme bout of tunnel vision, meets the creature. Did Jurassic Park make a reference to the Deadly Spawn?
Mr. Arnold.
Weird and insane if that is the case. She meets a similar, if not more graphic, fate as her husband. Next we meet Auntie Millie and Uncle Herb, who are awakened from their sleep by screaming coming from their nephew's room. I'm sure a lot of you watching can relate to this kid. This is Charles, and he's a horror addict, to the point where his psychiatrist uncle actually thinks there's something wrong with him. Sound familiar to any of you? He's watching a horror movie. The only way you can watch a horror movie. First thing in the morning, and loud. His room is kind of like a pre-alpha version of Will's from Stranger Things. And then we're introduced to Charles' older brother, Pete. I did warn you that there were a lot of people in this house, and there are still more main characters to introduce, but we'll get to them. Pete is a scientist, and he's studying for something. I'm not entirely sure what it is, just that it's
Science!
He struts around in his undies whilst talking to his sci-fi loving friend Frankie on the phone. This scene is probably to make up for the peek at mom boob that we got earlier on. Downstairs in the kitchen, Aunt Millie is preparing breakfast, whilst Uncle Herb tries to figure out what is wrong with Charles.
Herb, there's nothing wrong with that kid.
Nothing. The four of them have a bit of an awkward breakfast, and it's here that we find out about Bunny, Millie's mother. She's hosting a vegetarian party later on that day.
Oh, your grandmother doesn't cancel a vegetarian luncheon on account of bad weather.
Woo! Shortly after that, Auntie Millie leaves to go to the party, and Uncle Herb shrinks Charles.
Oh, hi. Come in. Well, now, sit down, Charles.
An electrician turns up. Yep, more characters. But don't worry, he doesn't last long. Soon after that, thanks to Herb's challenge,
Would you be willing to put on one of your monster costumes and scare me? That's stupid. How could you scare me if I know about it? Besides, I don't scare easily. Forget about it.
Charles goes into the basement. He really should know better as a horror fan, but I guess you'd never really know if you're in a horror movie. Who's to say we aren't in one right now? He sees a weird worm thing and still doesn't nope the fuck out. He does at least react though and backs up straight into the deadly spawn. Pete's friends turn up. Hooray! More people! These are Frankie and Ellen. Frankie being the one that he was speaking to earlier on the phone, and Ellen being a love interest. I honestly don't know why I have such an issue with the way that this film introduces characters. It's not like it's out of the norm. I think it's the jumbled way that the first four people that we meet are all roughly the same age and the same sort of character type, and two of them are killed off really quickly before we can figure out what their actual role is and who they are and who they're related to. And it just takes a while to figure out who the remaining two are, or rather not figure out, but be told who the remaining two are. I think that puts me on a bit of a back foot in terms of the introduction of characters in general with this film. I don't know, it just doesn't sit right for some reason. Anyway, Frankie and Ellen have found a familiarly weird looking worm on the way over.
We have a little surprise for you. What? I don't know whether to lead up to it first or just show it to her.
We get some more science!
If it is a vertebrate, these bumps suggest the order of Apodes, however you say it. But I've never seen anything like it.
Maybe it's an eel. You mean those bumps might be, undeveloped feet?
Yes, some form of locomotion.
And the trio, well, two of them, decide to perform a dissection, whilst Ellen performs the necropsy with a rather blunt looking razor blade. Auntie Millie arrives at Bunny's, where we learn all about porcelain animals, gorillas, and her delicious sounding green sauce.
Do you know what I've always wanted? What? A really handsome gorilla. A what? A gorilla. But they don't seem to make fine ceramics of the great apes for some reason.
Meanwhile, back at the house there's more dissecting, an argument, and a little bit of flirting. Ooh! And then the baby creatures arrive at Grandma's house. The Deadly Spawn was released in 1983, obviously, It is my birthday month. Please don't do the math. It was written and directed by Douglas McEwan. It was his only stint as director, and the first of 2 writing credits. The other being The Watermelon Woman, a comedy drama about a young filmmaker probing into the life of a black actress from the 1930s. It went under a couple of different titles in order to try and cash in on Ridley Scott's Alien, namely Return of the Aliens, The Deadly Spawn, and The Return of the Aliens, Deadly Spawn. Catchy! The film cost $25,000 to make, but I don't know how much it made, sadly. The producer, Ted Bohus? Anyway, says that he conceived of the idea when he read an article in the National Geographic about seed pods that were recovered from the Arctic in 1979, and nothing to do with Alien. In terms of the writing itself, it's not bad to say that it's a low-budget monster flick.
A real meteorite. It's red hot. What?
It does the job, and each of the characters has their own individual personalities. Even though some of them, as I mentioned before, may not have been introduced all that well, it's only really a small issue, and it is quickly overcome. Speaking of the characters, they are all acted very well. A combination of well-written dialogue and some pretty decent acting means that you're not taken out of the film, even if there is the odd moment where the odd reaction feels like it falls a little flat. Apparently, Gene Simmons owns the prop of Barb's severed head. This isn't a particularly over-the-top film. It isn't all screams and jump scares, but when the shit hits the fan, it doesn't slow down. It's pretty well paced. In true B-movie tradition, even though pretty much all of them did a good job, none of the actors really went on to make much else, which is a shame. The biggest name to come out of The Deadly Spawn was probably Tim Sullivan, who appeared in such projects as 2001 Maniacs and Scream Queens. He started his career on this film as a production assistant at the age of 15. Well, what have we been doing with our time? Obviously all of the creature effects are practical, and they look pretty good. Funnily enough, the creature was originally designed to be more of a man-in-a-suit type of monster, but associate producer and effects director John Dodds was unenthused by it. A week later, Dodds reportedly came back with several alternatives, including the mother spawn that we see in the film. The puppet of the mother spawn was built in the basement, but the effects artists forgot to take its size into account and were forced to remove one of its heads in order to get it upstairs for some of the later scenes. I love the creature design in this film. It's original and it looks dangerous, even though in some places it can be a little bit awkward, but it still looks great. Some of the practical effects are superb, for example the mini spawns. For the longest time I couldn't figure out how they made them sliver until researching for this video. Don't worry, I'm not going to spoil the magic here. Ironically enough, for a film that was riding on the coattails of a great, there was an unofficial sequel released in 1990 called Metamorphosis: The Alien Factor. It follows a bio-researcher who is infected with a mutagenic virus from outer space and is transformed into a bloodthirsty monster. And finally, we get to the big question. Would I recommend The Deadly Spawn? Yeah, I would. It's a fun, low-budget creature feature that doesn't overstay its welcome. And that final sting at the end? Perfection. So here's the thing. I love creature features. Ever since I was a kid, I've never been able to say no to a good monster fest. It doesn't matter if it's science fiction, or horror, or good, or bad, or absolutely awful. If it has a monster in it, then I'll give it a go.
You had me at
monster.
I'd say that this is a film best enjoyed with friends, paired with beer and pizza. In fact, make it a triple bill with The Deadly Spawn, Creature and Galaxy of Terror. I may cover those in a review in the future. I don't know. If you enjoyed this video, then please like and subscribe, leave a comment downstairs, and follow me on the socials that are listed in the description for the video. Remember to stay safe, stay weird, and most importantly, stay spooky. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye!